Welcome back to another episode of Boots, Balls and Bras with the Women's Champions League special, supported by Pepsi Max with myself, Farrah Williams, and the legend Emma Byrne. So we've finished the semi-final second leg over the weekend. Barcelona knocked out Chelsea and Lyon knocked out PSG. So we're going to start with the Saturday game, which was Chelsea at Stamford Bridge to Barcelona. Obviously, I said on the last episode, Emma, out in Barcelona, Chelsea poked the bear. Yeah. The bear was poked. It was woken. It was woken, and they turned up. You were at the game. I watched it on TV. You were at the game. Sold out Stamford Bridge. So in terms of the crowd, excellent marketing from Chelsea in terms of that. But let's talk about the game. Barcelona against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. I mean, I'll give my view, but you were live at the game. What was your view of it?
I would say in general disappointing from Chelsea. That's been nice, to be quite honest. I was actually doing comms and maybe I came across a little bit pro-Chelsea, but that was only because I wanted to see Barca get challenged because we see them winning week in, week out. And Chelsea were so good in Barcelona and they set up so well, and you know, they were the underdogs.
Yeah, for sure.
But I thought it was a little bit disappointing from Chelsea. As soon as I heard Ramirez wasn't playing, I was like, my heart sunk. I was like, that's it, game over. Might as well all go home.
And I feel like that was a huge difference, certainly in the way Chelsea set up tactically. I thought they got the tactics wrong a little bit, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm not going to challenge Emma. I mean, she's an absolute legend of the game. But in terms of the setup, I thought it was all wrong.
Oh, you are challenging her.
I am challenging her a little bit. Considering the away leg, maybe personnel didn't suit the way that they played out in Barca. But I felt right from the off, Emma. I don't know, Chelsea looked a little bit nervous. I thought they were sloppy in possession.
Yeah.
They gave away too many turnovers against a team that they know will hurt them in possession.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. It was really, really sloppy. And that was the word that kept coming to mind at half-time. So sloppy, not keeping the ball. They weren't able to stretch the game because they'd Lauren James up as the number 9. She was never going to run into those channels, and they kept putting the balls in there, which means, again, the turnover, they kept giving away possession. But like more than that, the basic stuff, like they were bumping into each other in midfield, at the back. They just looked a little bit clumsy, and maybe that was because of tiredness, because they did look physically tired and probably mentally wrecked. Like, let's be honest, it's so difficult to play a game like that and then consecutive game like that. It was just one of those things. Barca were way better and Chelsea did nothing to help themselves.
But that's my point. In terms of like, obviously we know Lauren James' strengths and what she brings to the game. She's very good at holding the ball. She can carry the ball up the pitch. She 1v1, very strong, effective. When it comes to turning teams and running those channels and actually giving your team time to get out of the pitch, I felt like she wasn't the player to do that in this particular game. When the ball went into Lauren, she slowed the game down, but players didn't get in advance of her, so they never really broke or hurt Barca in behind. When balls went into channels, she gave up on the chase. In my opinion, there were so many times where players give up on the chase and rather get back into shape, but that just allows Barca to do what Barca do well and dominate possession. I mean, they had 68% possession to Chelsea's 32%, which we expected.
Yeah.
But I just felt in those turnover moments, Chelsea were too shaken. But let's talk about the opening goal, because we spoke about poking the bear. We spoke about Bonmati's comments after the game out in Barcelona, and she was the player that come up with the opening goal.
Yeah, I mean, they controlled the game like we thought they were going to. Aitana, they played a lot through the middle in the first leg, and I thought Chelsea did an excellent job stopping them doing that. What they did in this time round in London, they were playing out wide a lot, and Aitana seemed to roam a little bit more. She got on the ball a little bit more, but it was a great goal. It was a typical goal from her, like that ball threaded in from Guijarro, and then Aitana just finding that little bit of space. Like, you just cannot give her an inch.
Exactly.
I was actually going to swear there. You can't give her like an inch around the area. And then you look at like what goes on behind you. Niamh Charles closing it down. She was doing okay. Buchanan was too far off. And for me as a goalkeeper, I don't want a defender that close to me either. I'll be telling Buchanan, go to ball. We need 2 on Aitana. Push Buchanan up, and then it gives you a little bit more time. And this is like going in like really specific detail, by the way. I do not blame Hannah Hampton for the goal, but just a little thing, like I would have pushed her up a little bit more, giving you a little bit more space as a goalkeeper, and maybe you can get that extra step in.
Well, you said it there, exactly that. A player like Bonmati, and we've seen it time after time, given a little bit of space in and around the box, there's only one thing going to happen.
Yeah.
Of course, it was a deflected goal into the bottom corner, but as you said, that time and space, I felt like Chelsea were a little bit like that. They weren't passive. They tried to be aggressive in their pressing, but they just couldn't get near Barcelona. And as you said, they used the wide, like I heard you mention in commentary, and obviously the stats back it up. Badge, I think out in Barcelona, 2 crosses over the 90 minutes. She probably had 3 within the first 15, 20 minutes of the game.
Anna is way better as a left back than as a right back. She's right foot, but she's better left back. She's played there the whole season because Rolfo's been injured. And I thought it was clever by Jonathan Giraldez to put her back there and move Rolfo up, just for the physicality of Rolfo as well. And Lucy Bronze brings something else to the team. Like, when she came on in Barcelona, she made a difference, just her experience. And yeah, I just thought in this case that Giraldez got it right, got everything right on the day.
They definitely did. There was two big chances for Chelsea in that first half. They were a goal down. There was a big chance where Nuskin cuts it back to Lauren James. On another day, she sorts her feet out and probably makes contact with it. That for me was a massive miss. And then obviously the what's her name? The centre mid, Chelsea. Loophole. Sorry, the cutback. I know the linesman or the linesman flagged after, but it was onside.
Oh, I thought it was because the ball went out.
No, it didn't go out of play. So they were flagging for offside. So I'm saying even that one.
Oh, they would have
back, hit the crossbar, they would have checked
absolutely.
it and offside. So 2 big chances to get Chelsea back. And they were the only real chances Chelsea had in the game.
Tired play though. And even looking back at it, that's a tired miss, like to hit the bar from there, to lean back like that. But realistically, they didn't create enough over the 90 minutes. And it all goes back to how they were set up as well. Like, Macario was dropping into midfield. They didn't really need her in there, to be quite honest.
That's the difference. So say, for example, Macario with her speed and probably would run the channels. You know, she comes off the left sometimes when she was that little. But could they have changed her and Lauren? Because you know Lauren's not going to run the channels. Is Lauren better in those pockets, picking up the ball, maybe finding Macario in advance? Because I felt like they lost something in those transition moments with nothing beyond and trying to stretch that Barca back line.
Listen, let me just reiterate. Let me just reiterate about Ramirez and the loss of there, because Emma Hayes. I thought Emma Hayes I was like looking at Emma Hayes at the start of the game. I was like, what's wrong? And then I realised Ramirez was injured. Like, when the news came in, I was like, that's what's wrong. Yeah. She just looked a little bit stressed, because losing Ramirez, not only do you lose being able to play it behind stretch in the game, you lose how they play out from the back. Like, she affected literally everything in that game. And then you have 2 choices. You either swap like for like, can you get a runner in there, or do you change it up and try and change how you play? If you're going to play Lauren James as a number 9 and ask her to stay high, you have to play. Yeah. You have to try and keep possession, and you have to try and build, and you have to try and work up the pitch in possession. It's not a counter-attacking style of play.
Definitely not.
And I feel like the team continued to play as they did in Barcelona with Ramirez.
And that's why they
changed in the second half.
But I felt like that's why they were so sloppy.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have that. They didn't have that out. Yeah. And as I said, I felt at times Lauren held onto the ball a little bit too long and probably went.
Well,
Chelsea were quite safe. I felt like in possession, I don't know if they were rattled. Obviously, the goal unsettled them a little bit. Maybe the Ramirez, them knowing that they didn't have her in the team, unsettles players. You know what it's like, you're one of your star players not in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It unsettles the team a little bit. But I felt most of their play was very safe. When they got it out into wide areas, there would have been a threat.
Yeah.
They didn't use the wide areas enough. Lawrence could have progressed up the left-hand side and Canarad on the right-hand side. They didn't give them the ball. Don't get me wrong, I thought the quality from Canarad when she did get the ball wasn't great. But as in some of the deliveries. I thought she got balls into the box, but I didn't think she was. There was free.
The first couple, I was like, she has to do better. Absolutely, yeah.
But they could have used that more. That was a weapon for them. That was certainly, in my opinion, an out.
She was very good on the ball and carrying the ball. I think it was a really interesting battle between her and Rolfo. And I think the reason Rolfo was playing higher was to stop her. I thought she did excellent in Barcelona. So. Yes, they could have brought her in. They could have brought Erin Cuthbert in. I mean, she is the player for them. They weren't really playing through her at all. But it just goes back to we're missing that player, but you have to change it. Okay, no problem. We're going to keep the ball a little bit more in midfield. You know, we're going to try and build up through there. And they didn't do that. But like we were talking about this earlier, if I'm Lauren James, and I know she's young, she's not that young anymore though. If I have all her attributes and I don't want the ball in there, I'm telling them, what are you putting it in there for? 100%. I want it to my feet. But you could see that they were still trying to do it.
Disconnected, weren't they?
And I'd be having words with players need to get involved in that as well.
I felt like they didn't want to show that, but we would show that frustration. Like if I was getting a ball in the chat, I'm not a runner.
But this doesn't happen anymore.
But I'm saying, I felt like you could feel Lauren's frustration because the balls that they were playing were like, maybe 60-40 in Barca straight into the channel. Lauren's going to give up on the chase. You could see her frustration, but she didn't want to show that. But when you know, like we know her, so we know that you can see with a little bit in her. But in a game that big, they don't really want to be kicking off on each other and whatever. And that's how it felt.
No, absolutely. But like you can be animated on the pitch. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're coming up with a solution and it's not just like giving out and throwing your hands, like throwing your toys out the pram. Come up with a solution. Listen, I don't want those balls in there. I want them to my feet. So next time when you look up, I'm going to show in there to my feet. Just give it in there and I'll go get it. Like it's not difficult, but I don't think there was enough of that really, like problem solving on the pitch.
I think the game's lost that a little bit. But I don't know if you agree, Emma, but I just felt like over the 2 legs, it showed the level of Barcelona to Chelsea.
Oh, absolutely.
It showed the levels of where we need to get to in the WSL, not just Chelsea, but as a whole, the WSL, Manchester City and Arsenal, if they're the teams that are going to be competing next year in the Champions League, we look way off of it still.
Do you know what? I was optimistic in the first leg, and I actually thought it was a really nice representation of the WSL because it was very, very physical. It shows the speed of play in the WSL. It shows that Barca aren't used to playing against this kind of competition because they're running amok in Liga F. And I was like, this is nice. This for me, I'm quite proud of the WSL in this game. And I just think that it's so difficult to maintain that level 2 games in a row. Not just 2 games in a row. Like Chelsea's had a heavy schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Barca like can change their whole team week in, week out and still be 12 points ahead.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a really good representation. And I think it's very, very close, actually. And I think, like...
Do you still think it is? See, I don't think it's close. I don't think it's as close as what we think it is.
I think if Ramiro was on that pitch, I think we'd be talking about something very, very different.
Potentially, but I still think in terms of a WSL team winning the Champions League, I still think we're off of it. In the next couple of years.
If being honest, looking at the other game as well, I was like blown away by the level there in PSG Lyon. But I do think Arsenal are nearly there. I think Man City are nearly there. But I said this before, it takes a good few years to actually get accustomed to the Champions League and realise the mistakes. And Barca,
they got knocked out a few years back. What was the one that really hurt them?
2019 4-1 against Lyon.
That hurt them. We all expected Barca to win.
They're still hurting over that.
That hurt them.
They're still angry.
But look how far they've come from that. They won the Champions League last year.
Arsenal beat Barca on aggregate something like 7-1. Like when I was playing, so it's not like 100 years ago. Very close. So they've progressed, and they'll say it took us a long time to get used to the Champions League level. And it's the same for like Arsenal, even though they'll be back in it next year. I don't really expect them to go a long way or a good way through it because they need those couple of years to get used to it.
Right, Emma, we have to talk about the 2 big talking points within the game. So Barca 1-0 up, 1-1 in aggregate. And on the 60th, I think it was the 60th minute, Buchanan, I think it was 59 minutes, Buchanan picks up a second yellow card. What did you make of the yellow card? The second yellow?
Well, I personally didn't think it was a yellow card. I know she ended up stamping on her foot, which is normally a card, but she won the ball first. There was no intent, and I just thought it was a little bit soft, especially considering it was the second yellow. And I know that shouldn't come into it, but you're ruining the game, sending off a player. And I think that should be, just... The referee should be reminded of that a little bit, and I don't think she should have been sent off personally.
No, I agree. When it was live and in the game, I'm like, never a foul. And then obviously you look at the replay and you could kind of see, okay, there was a little bit of a follow through, no intent behind the follow through. But when I look at the referee in terms of giving the card out, she was quick with her yellow card. I actually genuinely thought she that was the first card for Buchanan. Yeah. I didn't actually think she knew Buchanan was already on a yellow card because there was a delay to the second yellow. So the red come out a little bit of a white. So Possibly. If it was a first yellow, we'd probably all stand there and go, okay, fair enough. But because it's a second yellow, 60 minutes, 30 minutes playing with 10 players against Barcelona, you've got no chance. Best team in Europe, you've got no chance. So I think that, as I said, if it was a first booking, we'd probably sit here and accept it. But I think as a second yellow, I think it's very harsh. I mean, I think what was Emma's comments are saying it's the worst decision in the history of the Women's Champions League. That might have been a little bit of frustration from Emma at the end of the game. They were the comments she made, but that was the statement she made. But that obviously changed the game massively. Barca then become even more dominant in terms of with the ball. Chelsea, we already spoke about them. It was already leggy up to that moment. They've got another 30 minutes to play with 10 players. Emma did try and change it.
Yeah.
She obviously brought Guru Wrighton on. She brought on what's the kid's name? Beaver Jones.
She put Millie Bright on.
She put Millie Brighton up front. So they showed they tried to go for it.
Yeah.
And then obviously then we get, in my opinion, this is the harsh one, the penalty shout. That obviously wins the game for Barcelona. What was your thoughts on the actual penalty?
I didn't really think it was a penalty, and nothing against Barca. I've been getting a little bit of abuse on social media saying that I'm anti-Barca. I'm not anti-Barca. I love Barca. I love watching Barca. But Barca should have won the game, first of all. But I think they'll be disappointed they didn't score more from open play. I don't think it was a penalty. I think, again, Chelsea were just unlucky. It was a shove from Jess Carter coming together.
I think that was it. I think once VAR, because in live play, I mean, if you nudge somebody off the ball, you're not going to give away a free kick. You're not going to give away a penalty. I felt that once the referee had given the penalty, the VAR couldn't overturn it.
Oh no, absolutely
because it wasn't clear.
not.
It wasn't a clear and obvious mistake, because obviously Jess Carter's shoved Bonmati into
contact.
Lawrence, and there's contact. So therefore, there's a kind of sandwich there going on.
Yeah.
So I think once the ruling of VAR, they only overturn it if it's clear and obviously wrong or right.
Yeah,
so
this is
it was
the thing.
never going to get overturned. But it's a harsh penalty.
It was the shove, but if Lawrence wasn't there, I don't think there would have been a problem.
There's no penalty. Exactly
so
that.
The fact is, Lawrence is there. She's fine, but the shove sent her in. Bonmati into Lawrence, and then Bonmati caught her foot.
Yeah.
It wasn't Lawrence.
No, it wasn't Lawrence. Lawrence was like, look at VAR. But it's the shove.
Unlucky.
It's the shove. And I think that obviously then the shove, as you mentioned, they wanted the other defender. But that was, a penalty. And then obviously we've seen what happened. Rolfa on 75 minutes. I mean, cool, calm. Like, how cool was that? I mean,
I just knew she was going to score.
Hampton went a bit early. I think, you know what was it? I mean, for a goalkeeper, tell me that you can't read the body language of a player.
Listen, because with all this technology
don't get me wrong, the penalty from Rolfa was good. It was calm. But her body was so open, there was only one way she was hitting that ball. There was only one way ever.
I don't like to anticipate. Like I'm still playing. I didn't like to anticipate. I prefer to try and go them in a certain way, whether it's lean in or whatever. I think that Hannah Hampton has done her research, because there's no way Emma Hayes would not allow that to happen.
No, but I think you can do your research. But I think I was a penalty taker. When I take penalties, I always used to go to my right, so the keeper's left.
Yeah,
but
because it's more natural for you to go across your body.
So only when I was training with a goalkeeper, that when I was at Liverpool, and it was before the 2015 World Cup, he was saying to me, your body's too open, I can read it every time. You need to do something where there's more disguise to it.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, as a goalkeeper, although there's a certain way players like to go, she was so square that you just knew it was only going one way.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, it's also 50-50, Hannah Hampton's first big Champions League rodeo. There was definitely a bit of nerves there, and she'll learn from a couple of things from those games as well.
Definitely. But but then so obviously that seen Chelsea lose 2-1 at Stamford Bridge, obviously exit the Champions League. So no Champions League final for Chelsea. We was hoping for a Chelsea-Lyon.
Just on a positive note though, Emma Hayes told me she really, a couple of years ago, she would love to fill out Stamford Bridge.
Oh, she did it.
She did it. It was a really nice moment for her. They had loads of T-shirts and stuff for her last game there. So it was quite a nice moment as well.
They needed that. And Emma and the players were saying that, in order if they are to beat this Barca team, they need a crowd behind them. I thought the crowd were fantastic. And as you said, a sellout Stamford Bridge. We haven't seen that with the men's team this year. That's a joke, guys.